I will start from the first debaters. I will not address, because I had already written that I wasn't happy with either of the premises for the fact that they were not wide enough. They were very narrow. But due to circumstances, I would give you both that advantage of not criticizing your premises and let that one go. And I'll start with your debaters. The first debater for Lumen mentioned that the Union of Railway Workers mentioned something, but the union does not speak for an administration. It speaks for workers' rights within the administration. So they can't even speak. Their stance is not the stance of the administration. Also, and this one I would say polemics, you missed a chance to take advantage of to attack a point made by the opponent. The issue of compensation was given. In fact, I think the problem, and this is where people don't have enough knowledge, is we have a lot of second and third party issues. I know Natalie and I were aware of the lady in Osaka whose landlord knew that they were going to demolish, had known since October, and props for getting the exact month correct. I actually noted that it was actually October. Knew since October, and in January still corrected rent. So you guys did not put a lot of nuance in your arguments, and you guys, again, you were not listening to your opponent, so you didn't even take advantage of it. And if you're debating, you are meant to listen to each other. So that is something you guys need to consider. But the delivery, I have no problem with the delivery or the persuasion. For the first debater for polemics, you mentioned something about the government, and you said judicial tiers. The federal, state, and local government are executive tiers. They're not in the judicial arm of government. Just a correction on that. I'm very keen on correct information when you're debating. I'm happy with your use of information, Constitution, Land Use Act, but there's a big flaw I noticed. You kept talking of the government's right to revoke rights on any land. You see, the main thing that makes that law valid and does not, like she correctly mentioned, prevent it from violating fundamental human rights and even the rights in the Constitution, is that it has to be for a common and general good. And by not mentioning that, you are misquoting the Land Use Act. You are not saying it in its fullest. So you must note that. I noticed you kept staying on the structure, the safety, the structure, environment, safety. I didn't feel the argument for the need for demolition was broad enough. The argument was very, very narrow. Even when you're talking about urban and regional planning and, economic, yes, later on, I think we second debater, you got to the point where you mentioned that other jobs will come into the park. Even then, you were not even broad. All you needed to mention was that the same jobs at Holy Ghost in a different format, because anywhere you have passengers, people will sell things. So again, narrow argument. I had the issue with very narrow arguments. You now mentioned something, and I want us to be very careful on this. The second debater, when you came in, I was very happy that I started with an attack on a statement from them. I like when people go at each other, but you said that government has the interest of people. That was the second debater. No, we hope the government has the interest of people. For you to say with certainty that government has the interest of people, you are campaigning.
Namdi, we know.
We hope.
We know.
Every government, look, the concept of government, we hope and we want the government. But when you say with certainty,
here in Enugu State, we know.
You are campaigning, you are not debating. She's an SSA, I'm a pressman. We're two different people. For the second debater, again, I liked your delivery. Your delivery was very, very good. And I like some things you did. Your use of the anesthesia as, to represent your point, putting in your own personal experience with the whole issue of fake drugs and NAFDAC during that period. But please, put your cue card down. You held it like this. You look like a referee approaching a player that committed a foul. So just so that, because your presentation too, your body language, I know paralinguistic, non-verbal cues make up more of your communication than the words you're actually saying. So it's very important, how you say. Then you cannot prove, and you made one statement that about the business, how much business the park will bring. You cannot prove the viability of a business model if you don't have data. So let's not use emotions to make statements like, oh, these people will be displaced, the value of Ogige market in Nsukka, what was coming there, and whether it will bring as much money. Without data, you can't prove. But I also like the fact that you had a very, very cohesive thread, and you closed well. So all in all, for both of your teams, it was a decent debate.
Okay. I was very, very impressed by both teams. You guys did considerably better than you did in your videos. So Lumen, you guys, you know, your first debater was very well spoken. So you're a very soft speaker, but you're very well spoken. I could hear everything you were saying. I could understand everything you were saying. It's not the usual, debates are usually a bit aggressive. You were not aggressive at all, but you still got your points across in a very feminine and a very gentle manner. And I honestly must applaud you for that. I really liked it. I remember from our meeting before that you asked the question about delivery and you know how people would deliver, and you stayed true to who you are, but you did it excellently. So honestly, well done for that. Your second debater as well, a massive improvement from your video. So like you guys really went back, you know, did your best and came and you brought it, and you know, I'm just so proud of you guys watching from here, just seeing how much effort you must have put into this. Because I'm part of the government, I don't really want to poke holes, you know, and ask too many questions about the debate itself. I'll leave that for Namdi and our professor here. So I'll just speak, you know, on the other things. For polemics, I'm also very impressed. I liked your premise. So I thought you gave a stronger premise than Lumen. I thought your premise was also persuasive. So you came out, you know, you came out with a bang. I liked it. I didn't have too many problems with your premise. It was just 2 minutes. Your first debater, I like that you put in some effort. I like that you put in effort. You made your points. It was easy to understand. But your second debater, wow. Wow. Hats off to you. You were amazing. I'm at the, you know, when we finish these events and I go back and I'm writing down debaters that I think are, you know, one of the strongest debaters of the tournament. I think you may just be one of the strongest debaters of the tournament. You're fantastic. Your delivery is good. Your persuasion is good. Even with information, I think you had some information there, but like Namdi said, you could have done so much more. Having an understanding of how societies are built, having an understanding of town planning and why town planning is very important, those could have really helped your arguments. But you really did ride on the wave of persuasion and delivery and some information. So I think you did excellently well. Regardless of whoever wins today, you guys had every reason to be proud of yourselves. Having said that, I just have 1 or 2 things to say about the contents of what you said. To the Lumen, I think, you know, again, the whole essence of this particular debate is, was it unfair? So I can understand that to ask that question, was it unfair, it's primarily founded on emotions, because whether something is fair or unfair is an emotional question. So I like that you came with emotions, you know, where will people stay, where will people this, or people that, that's fine. But you did dive into, was it legal? So you said something about the human rights and, you know, because they said the Constitution, and then you responded with human rights, right? So every demolition that was done in Enugu State was in fact legal. So it was the legal thing to do. It was a constitutional thing to do. They had every right to do it. Now, whether it was fair is the question. So you made very strong points on why it could have been unfair, But to say, human rights were trampled on, no human rights were trampled on if you did your research properly. That's the only thing I have to say. With you guys had a massive opportunity to talk about how people expand. So revenue, how income is made in a state or in any society. So for instance, we have in Lagos, we have about 25 million people living in Lagos, right? Now, because we have 25 million people living in Lagos, the revenue that comes into Lagos is massive. Don't quote me on this, but I think Lagos makes easily more than 50 billion naira a month. Now, why are they making more than 50 billion naira a month? They're making that money because they have so many people. So many people that they're taxing, so many people that have all these opportunities. So that's why they're making that money. Here in Enugu State, don't quote me on this, I don't think we have up to 3 million people in town. So in town, I would say we have probably 2 million people in Enugu town. Now, when you have just 2 million people in a state, how do we make this money? Because when we make this money, then we can create more jobs for the people, more opportunities. But then how do we have this money if we don't have these many people? Now, if we want to bring more people into Enugu, how do we bring them into Enugu with our 2-lane roads? We need to expand. We need to reconsider the infrastructure. So demolitions now must happen. So the bigger picture sometimes can seem unfair, but it is necessary. If you understand what I'm saying. Now, you guys you made a fair attempt, but you didn't quite grasp this bigger picture. So you didn't tie it to the bigger picture of, they're talking about jobs. In order to create enough jobs, these demolitions must happen. Because if you bring down 10 million, like you said, you can be sure what comes back up is 50 million or 100 million. So I understand that obviously, I've been a while in this, so yes, I may have the bigger picture. So you didn't quite give me that bigger picture, but you did excellently well. And I'm proud of both teams. Well done.
I almost thought you had joined the debates for a second. So many points.
Those were political statements.
Please spare them.
Go ahead, Dr. Nkirika.
Well,
Namdi, please, I should remind you that I have a job. Okay. And I have a job to do that must be done.
I'm a pressman.
So I'm on the clock.
I'm doing my own job.
So even though I'm here, I'm still on the clock.
I'm doing my own job. I'm quizzing your administration.
Okay,
We can start that debate now.
No, let's leave this till later.
Well, thank you very much. I'm just in between the journalist and the government, finding myself somewhere in between. Oh well, I just want to say that it was really a lovely session. Getting to see you react to the topic on board. I want to actually say that the second speaker, that's Lumin, did well. Your information was quite good, but I kind of had something wasn't really going well with me in the sense that you were not particularly debating. You were reeling out your information and the points, but it wasn't in a convincing manner. I don't know whether what I'm saying is making sense. I think she mentioned something like that. So that's about that. Well, the third speaker from that angle as well was able to do some good job in trying to bring forth real arguments. And I think she also did well but I observed that you didn't do so much of rebuttals from the statements that came from polemics. Is that okay? I don't know. You don't understand what I'm trying to say? Okay, so then I would also want to say this is polemics, right? The first speaker on your premise, you came out, to engage us, given the premise for that argument, but it didn't really drive deep down into, it wasn't clear. The relevance, I don't know how to put it, but based on the relevance to the topic, it wasn't quite clear, because you should come forth with a clear premise based on the debate. Then for your second speaker, I don't know what is it. Second speaker, you had a lot of filler words in there. Anytime you want to speak to an audience in a debate, I suggest you pause in between your speeches so that you'll be able to make emphasis on whatever point you have to, because that kind of puts people off your engagement. So on that note, but I think your arguments were good, but there was something about, I think it was you mentioned something about collapse of buildings. It was you. And I was wondering, is there anything about compromise on buildings in that area in Enugu, particularly in the Ogbete main market? Was the issue based on the integrity of the buildings? Was that the reason why the buildings were demolished in the first place? It was, so I felt that argument or that point was completely irrelevant. Okay? To that, so it shouldn't come in the first place. So are you bothered about the durability of a building? It's completely off the focus or what the government wanted to do in that area. So you also went all out, because I felt you already have two speakers from that angle, and you came out, you just spoke your own and you left without rebuttals. So I felt it was deficient of rebuttals. And you were the third speaker and also the closer. I must commend your engagement. Yes, you were quite persuasive. That was a big plus for your team. And it's going to help make us, try hard to see how, you fought hard for your team, and that will form the premise for our decisions today. I don't know. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for that.
Could I just say something? The person who did the replies for Lumix, I saw where you were coming from with human rights violation, but again, it was a common theme throughout this debate: missed opportunities. The violations we were talking about were not necessarily government-based, but your argument could have been that those demolitions gave opportunity to the thugs and errant security operatives who did such things. Again, you missed that opportunity. So that's what I noted here, that a lot of you did not really have a grasp. Like Dara, who has government information, I'll share another secret with you. Natalie and I have covered the demolitions from day one. So even down to every single railway MOU, every single we've met. We have, okay, that's him there. He's been put in jail by the railway people. That cameraman behind you. So we are very aware of the situation. So I know that the gap between actual information and what you guys seem to have is a lot. But on the face of it, I'll still say well done to both of you.
Sorry, if I just one more point. I think one of you mentioned something about flood in Enugu, and I'm wondering, do we have such challenge in Enugu Metropolis, right? Is it based on evidence?
That's the Nkpokiti one.
Sorry?
The Nkpokiti you mentioned. You mentioned it, Nkpokiti
Yes,
flood.
I mentioned the reports that we had from Vanguard Nigerian News on June 12, 2023. A flood that actually claimed a life.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yes.
It's the way the house was built. It's a...
Thank you guys so much.
All right,
I just have one more pointer for you. Next time when you're doing the rebuttals and the responses, you don't have to respond to their rebuttal. So you should use that 1 minute to respond to their entire argument, not just what they said. So it's an opportunity to respond to an entire argument, not just the immediate thing that was said.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, our judges. And thank you, Team Polemics and Team Lumen. You may please take your seats. Thank you.
For the first debate, you guys did awesome. But for me, it was a draw.
It was a draw for Dara. It was a draw between Team Polemics and Lumen. A draw. All right, so let's hear from our guest judge.
Right.
Now, Mrs. Nkiruka, please tell us, where does your vote land? Over to you.
The way your eyes are fixed on me, you want me to be jittery? Well, I must say it was a good session that we had then. But for me, based on careful evaluation, I'm also giving a draw for that competition. Yes.
A draw?
Yes.
Wow. We have 2 draws. And that means that each team has the same number of points. Each team has 2 points. So the tiebreaker is Namdi. Namdi, what was your verdict?
You know, it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than to find difference between these two teams. Their strengths were in so many different places. And I'll be very honest, scoring them both over 100, the closest number to the difference between two of them was 1. That's how tight it was. It came down, and unfortunately I don't see my totals till the end because I just score. And but both teams were. It was very, very. Look, I'm not going to lie. It was very hard, very, very hard. And I think that both teams can hold their head up. They did well, but with just a hair's breadth, with just that a runner has a bigger shoe size than the other one, with VAR having to come back to check the score, I had to give it to Team Polemics.